What's happening, and welcome back, my ninjas, to another lab walkthrough video. This one is going to be for configuring IPv4 static and default routes. So let's go ahead and just jump right into the lab. It's going to be a packet tracer lab, and then let me just jump over there and show you what I got. So right here we got that basic packet tracer lab. Now right here we got, just to give you what we got on the topology, you're going to see we got 1, 2, 3 routers. We got a switch here, and a PC hanging off of that. So the first part of the lab is just to examine the topology and the network that you got set up, or I should say networks that we got set up, right? Because as you can see, this is a subnet right here. So we got a network here with a /25. We got a couple /30s here, kind of like right here, simulating a WAN link. This would be your LAN links, right? Because you're connected to a switch here and you're connected to a switch here. Also, you got a /26 over here. So right now, as it stands, if we wanted to ping from this P over to this PC, we aren't going to be able to do that because this PC is on /25 network and this PC is on a /26 network. So if I go over right here to this PC, just pull it up, right? And I run an IP config. Let me blow it up so y'all can see. We see the IP address right here, some other stuff. We got a default gateway, but right here, this IP address ends in a .190. So close that. And then, so we'll try to ping it. And this one ends in a .126. But again, that IP address really doesn't matter. It's the subnet mask that matters because that's the subnet that it belongs to. So if you just ping 172.31.190, it's just failing and it's responding from the default gateway that basically your default gateway, 172.31.1, this router here is saying, hey, I don't know how to get out to that 190 IP address that you're pinging out to, which leads to kind of the first step of this static route configuration lab. What it's trying to explain to you here is that just out of the box, routers they know how to route, but you have to sit there, configure it, and point, hey, R1, we'll call this one R1, R2, and R3. Basically, this router, you got to point it and say, hey, if you want to get to any networks that aren't connected to you, you have to tell it where to go. So for this one, since we're trying to get to this .128 network over here, we have to tell router 1, if you want to get over there, you got to go to R2, because R2 is connected to this, which is directly connected to a .128. So by pointing just to this, it helps build the puzzle and helps put together the pieces of what you need to do to establish that full connectivity from end to end, meaning from this end of the network over here to this end of the network. So that's going to be our first step. And in this lab, they go over 3 different types of static routes that you can configure. You can configure a recursive static route, a directly connected static route, and then a default static route. And we're going to go through all 3 of them, starting right here on R1. We'll just blow this up. And if we go in here, a recursive static route just means basically, I don't know what that word means. I think it means like recurring or something, but in the lab it says just point to the next hop IP address. So to configure it, we have to go into privilege mode and then go into config mode, which is conf t. And so the lab tells you to point router 1 toward router 2. Router 2's next hop IP address is .193. As you can see right there on gig 000 on this interface. So you're just telling this router, which is the default gateway for this PC, you're just going to tell them to get over to any network that is not directly connected to you, which are, because we know these networks, this network and this network is not directly connected to you, because we don't have to tell them how to get to this network. That's directly connected to them. We don't have to tell them how to get to this network. We have to tell them how to get to networks that aren't directly connected. That's the point of the static route. And to do that, we're going to just create a static route that points to the next hop IP address, which we know on this interface is .193. Hopefully all of that's making sense. So let's go into the configuration of it. To configure the static route, you just use the command IP route, and then you're going to put whatever your destination network or the network that's not directly connected, the one that he knows nothing about, that he's oblivious of. He doesn't know about this /30, the 1.196, and he doesn't know about this /26, the 1.128. So that's going to be our first step. That's what we're going to tell him to point to in our first configuration here. So let's go over there to that. So we're going to go IP route 172.31.1.196.250.252, which is a /30. And then what's my next hop IP address? 172.31.1.193. Again, just going to keep going over and over. So I'm saying just keep forcing it into your head. I'm telling him this network that you know nothing about, router, because you don't know anything, go to .193. He knows about where .193 is because it's directly connected to him. And where am I getting that .193? Right there, it's gig 000. It's the IP address of the directly connected network of .192, which is hanging off of this interface. So go back over here. So boom, right there. That's what that command is doing. Next, we're going to tell them how to get over to our other, whoops, and I made a mistake right here. My bad. We're going to first, it's the .196, not the .192. So now let's erase that other one. So hit Control A. Control A is that shortcut. Get with your shortcuts. Good thing that I messed up just to show y'all. That's a shortcut to jump to the front of the command line there. So you just put no IP route, and then we're going to do no IP route .192. Because again, he doesn't need to know about the .192. He needs to know about networks that are not directly connected to him. Next, we're going to tell him how to get over here to this network. Pretty easy. So now we're going to go over here. If you want to get to the .128, which is a different subnet, it ends in, it's a /26, which translates to a 192 subnet mask. We're pointing again to the same router. We're pointing to the same next hop IP address. This guy, router 2, is just telling them, if you need to get over here or over here, send all that information to this IP address of 1.193. So boom, so we configured it. Now, let's go back to our topology and let's try to ping it now. So blow it up. And as you can see, it's still timing out. It's still failing. There's no connectivity there. So let's just minimize that. And the reason being, again, the whole point of this lab is telling you that you have to sit here and lay it out, not just for router 1. You're going to have to configure static routes on this guy, router 2. You're going to have to configure static routes on this guy, router 3. If there was another router and you're using static routing, you're going to have to configure it on the next router, router 4. Router 5, so on and so forth, until everybody knows about the networks that are not directly connected to them. So the next part of the lab, they're going to do directly connected static routes. How would you do that? So a directly connected static route, all they're saying there is just use the interface instead of using the next hop IP address. So router 2, we're going to tell him about networks that aren't directly connected to him. What are the networks that aren't directly connected to him? The 31.1.0, that's not directly connected to him. That one's hanging off over here. And then the 1.128, that's not directly connected to him. We're going to point him out of each of his respective interfaces. So 001, if you want to get over to .128, use this interface router. And then for the 1.0, you use 000 interface. That's what we're going to tell router 2. So let's jump into him, enable, and then we're going to go conf t again. IP route, same syntax. But the only thing that's going to be different is we're not going to be pointing to the next hop IP address. We definitely can use the next hop IP address, but they're just trying to show you in this lab a different way to do it. Because what happens if this was like the ISP or something, or for whatever reason you don't have the next hop IP address, but you know that the exit interface towards that network over here or towards a network you don't know about, let's say it's a network you don't even know about, you could just use this interface, or you could just use this interface to get the traffic out of this router to keep it moving. So we're going to go 172.31.1.0 and then a /25, which translates to a .128. And then again, let's use the help right here. Last time we used the forward and router's address, or the next hop IP address. This time we're going to use a specific interface because we're pretending that we don't even know the next hop IP when we really do. So boom, and then we're going to put which interface knows how to get over to the 1.0. That would be the gig 00. So you're just going to put gig 0. And then just ignore this. If you get this in your lab or whatever, you could just ignore that piece. Now let's point it to tell them how to get over to the 1.128/26. Same syntax, but it's 1.128, not 1.0, 1.128. And then again, the subnet mask is different. So /26, which is 192, and then a different interface, 001. Now let's jump back over to that PC, our little test PC right here, and let's run it again. Still doesn't know how to get there. Again, why? Because only router 1 and router 2 are configured. We need to configure router 3, which is our final router to configure. Now the final router here, we're going to use a default static route. So a default static route, we're going to tell him, instead of telling him how to get to these networks that aren't directly connected, the 1.192 and the 1.0, we're just going to tell him, we're going to be like, any network. It doesn't matter if it's 1.192, 1.0. I don't care if it's 2.0, 3.0, 4.0. Any network you don't know how to get to, we're just going to point him out of this 001 interface. Because we know that if we want to get over here to network and to this network, all we have to do is get it over to router 2, because he's going to know how to get over there, and then he's going to know how to send all that information to router 1, and router 1 is going to know how to send all that information back to the PC that needs to get the information back from over here from this network. Because you got to remember, ping is two-way traffic. He's got to be able to send the traffic through these routers this way, and then once he gets it, he's got to reply with the ping, because the ping is sending and receiving information. So it's got to have a route back. We can't just know how to send the traffic over there and then not know how to send it back. So again, we'll jump in here and we're going to do a default static route for him. So enable conf t IP route. But this time, to tell a default static route, you put quad zeros. That's what they're going to call it. So 4 zeros for the IP address. That's telling the router any IP address with any subnet mask. So that's quad zeros. And then again, you can point it to the next hop IP address if you know that, but we're just going to use 001, and we're just going to point it out the interface. Again, ignore that message. So now we have a default static route. Before we verify it, let's verify our default static route and how it looks in the routing table. As you can see, it's going to have an asterisk and a S for a default static route. Now, if you go into router 2 and we do show IP route static, notice it's just static routes here. This is just saying that you have static routes. None of them are default, because the difference here is that a default static route has an asterisk. That's something that the lab wants to point out, is that you're able to identify when you jump into these routing table what this S is, and you're not thrown off what it is. It's a static route. And this is a default static route because you have this. That means I can get to anywhere by going to this interface. And this is just straight up static routes. But this is a directly connected static route because it's pointing towards interfaces. And then the recursive static route, if we do show IP route static here, a recursive static route, those are the three differences, right? It's still got the S, but a recursive one has the next hop IP address, whereas the directly connected static route has just it. And then finally, your default static route, where you have the quad zeros and the static default route with the asterisk. Those are the 3 different kind of routes. So now let's jump over to our PC and let's ping over there now. All right, as you can see, it did take a little second there. It timed out, but that's because that's just the router and everything, and it's a lab and it's processing the information. So we just run it back to verify one more again. So boom, you see that it's replying all the way through. The connectivity is established and everything like that, because we're making it all the way through and we're using all of the routes, and this guy knows how to get to this guy knows how to get to this guy, and it knows how, more importantly, knows how to get to this network, and it knows how to get to this network from all of the different kind of static routes that we have configured. Now, just to show you the difference one more again, just to show the difference, instead of doing, we'll use a next hop IP address instead of doing the interface, doing a directly connected. We'll just use that. Guys, if you guys are feeling this content, if I'm breaking it down, please drop it in the comment. If I'm breaking it down simply for you, because that's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm aiming to do. Definitely like and subscribe if you're feeling the content. And if there's something that I can do better, if it needs to be bigger, the font needs to be bigger, y'all not feeling the black and orange or whatever the case may be. I'm trying to make these videos as easy as possible for y'all. So real quick, we'll just run through this again. Conf T, and we're going to do a no IP route, quad 0, and then gig 001, and then we're just going to do same thing, default static route, but just to show you, we can use the next hop IP address. Again, what's the next hop IP address on this segment for the network of .196 over here? What is his gig 001 configure IP address? 1.197. So you go in here and you just put in 172.31.1.197. Now let's look at the difference. If we go show IP route static to verify it, look, we have 2 different kind of static routes, but they're still doing the same thing. It doesn't matter whether you use the next hop IP address or if you're using the interface. The point is that you're pointing to this router so that it can get the information back. And just to verify it again, we got to make sure that it's working. We're just going to ping it again. And as you can see, it doesn't matter. It's still replying. It's still working because we understand the concept of a default static route. And whether we're pointing to the interface or the next hop IP, that's all that we need to configure a static route. All right, that pretty much wraps it up for this video. Hopefully that made sense. Again, hopefully that brings some kind of value, and I've shared some kind of knowledge with you all to where that you can be confident. You can now have some experience and say, I know how to configure static and default static routes or recursive routing. You understand those kind of concepts now, and you could sit comfortably in a job interview, or when you go to sit for the ccna exam and they throw in them big words recursive, especially when it comes to static routing. Now they're just saying, what's that next hop IP address? And that's all you're just going to have to kind of work your brain around. Again, if you guys are feeling this, please, you already know it's going to help the channel if you subscribe, if you share the video, if you comment or whatever, if you like it. It's going to just help the channel grow, help me do more of these lab videos. Definitely drop down in the comments if you guys want something different that you're specifically working on. Send them requests through the comments, or hit my email or whatever in the about section of this channel. I'll definitely get to it. I'm just trying to create and share this knowledge that I got and try to make it as easy as I can for you. I enjoy doing this lab, and hopefully you enjoy watching it and it wasn't a waste of your time. Again, I'm just trying to help all my ninjas out there. You feel me? The mask is off. It's just me and y'all. So y'all help me grow. I'll help y'all grow. Iron sharpen iron, all that there. I'm going to catch y'all on that next video. Holla at me. Peace.